March 16, 2024, Greenville, Mississippi. A quiet neighborhood was shattered by an inferno that consumed not just a house, but an entire bloodline. 8 lives gone. 6 children. 2 men. And at the center of it all, a father, a husband, a cop, who found out the darkest truth a man could ever learn. This wasn't about money. It wasn't even about jealousy. This was the ultimate betrayal, a DNA test that revealed the unimaginable. His children weren't his. They were fathered by his own family. If you're drawn to chilling true stories that expose the darkest corners of the human soul, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. This is True Crime Stories Arena, where truth is more terrifying than fiction. It was 2:47 a.m. on March 16, when the first 911 call came in. There's a house on fire. Willow Creek Drive. There's people inside. Within moments, the switchboards in Greenville, Mississippi lit up like a Christmas tree. Multiple calls poured in, frantic voices describing the same horrific sight. A single-story home swallowed by flames, a black plume of smoke tearing into the night sky. This wasn't just a fire. This felt like hell had broken loose. By the time first responders arrived at the Rollins residence, the inferno was fully alive. Walls blistered, glass shattered, flames rolled across the rooftop like waves in a storm. And through it all, there were screams, muffled, guttural, coming from inside, but no one could get in. Windows were sealed shut from within. Doors were barricaded, locked, chained, blocked with furniture. It was as if someone wanted everyone inside, to stay inside. Firefighters fought tooth and nail, but the fire wasn't just feeding on wood and drywall, it was fueled by something more sinister. Something intentional. It would take over an hour to get the blaze under control. 3:56 a.m. The fire was finally out, but what the team found inside, no training could prepare them for. 8 bodies, charred beyond recognition, scattered in different corners of the home like broken puppets in a burned-down theater. At the center of this tragedy, Cassandra Rollins, Kendrick's wife. She was found curled beside what investigators believed were her 3 youngest children, ages 3, 6, and 9. In another room, 3 more teens, all related, and 2 adult males, brothers or cousins. It wasn't immediately clear. The home that once echoed with children's laughter had become a mass grave. Arson investigators quickly picked up the signs. Burn patterns told a story, a chilling, calculated story. Accelerants had been poured along hallway floors, soaked into bedroom rugs, and traced along baseboards. The fire had multiple points of origin. It wasn't random. It wasn't electrical. This was deliberate. Even more haunting, every exit was locked from the inside. Chairs jammed beneath doorknobs, heavy objects stacked in front of windows. Whoever set this fire didn't just want the house to burn. They wanted no one to make it out. By sunrise, news of the fire had blanketed local airwaves. But what sent shockwaves through Greenville wasn't just the body count. It was the name linked to it. Kendrick Rollins. To the community, he wasn't just a neighbor. He was a symbol of law and order, a decorated police officer, 10 years on the force. Calm, polished, professional, the kind of man you called when things went wrong. He attended church on Sundays, coached Little League when his shift allowed. Never once had he been disciplined on the job. Never once did he raise suspicion. To many in Greenville, Kendrick wasn't just respectable, he was untouchable. So when whispers began that he might have had something to do with the fire, no one wanted to believe it. Because if Kendrick Rollins was capable of this, what did that say about everything people thought they knew? But behind the picket fence and the polished boots was a storm waiting to erupt. Neighbors would later speak, reluctantly. Some recalled hearing yelling late at night. Others said Cassandra had confided in them, said she was afraid. One witness came forward anonymously, claiming they saw Cassandra and Kendrick arguing in the driveway the day before the fire. It wasn't a marital spat. It was volatile. Loud. Furious. Still, even then, no one could have imagined what was coming. But evidence would begin to stack up, quietly, methodically. Security footage from a gas station, timestamped just hours before the blaze, showed Kendrick. Calm. Collected. Filling up 2 red gas cans. He paid in cash. No uniform. No badge. Just a hoodie and gloves. When questioned, Kendrick claimed he was filling up for his generator. But investigators couldn't find a generator on the property. Not even a receipt. And then came the lab report. The accelerants found at the scene. They matched the brand of gasoline sold at that exact station. The cracks in the facade were growing. The perfect family. It was only perfect from the outside. It started with something seemingly benign. Malia Rollins, Kendrick and Cassandra's 17-year-old daughter, had been feeling ill, persistent fatigue, joint pain, skin flares. Doctors suspected an autoimmune condition, something genetic. To get ahead of it, the hospital requested a standard DNA panel. Nothing unusual, just a routine check for hereditary markers. Kendrick and Cassandra both complied. So did the children. Blood samples were drawn. Chain of custody was recorded. No red flags. No one suspected the test would do anything but confirm their suspicions of lupus or another common condition. But what returned from the lab wasn't medical. It was monstrous. When the results came in, there was immediate confusion. Then disbelief. Then horror. Kendrick Rollins was not the biological father of any of the 6 children. Not one. Hospital staff double-checked the samples. Reran them. Verified identities. But the science didn't lie. The paternity mismatch didn't end there. When forensic experts ran the children's DNA against Kendrick's family members, what they found turned a shocking betrayal into something unimaginable. 2 of the children were fathered by Kendrick's own father. 3 were genetically linked to Kendrick's younger brother. And the youngest child bore DNA that matched Kendrick's estranged son from a previous relationship. 3 generations. 1 house. 6 children. 1 family tree, tangled beyond recognition. The findings were documented, sealed, and added to the hospital's report. Kendrick was notified. He was at the hospital at the time, in the waiting room, quietly scrolling his phone. A nurse handed him the envelope. He opened it. He read it once. Then twice. No outburst. No scream. No reaction. He just stood up. And walked out of the building. Did he already know? Was it the confirmation of a long-feared suspicion? Or was this the first time his world cracked open? No one can say for certain what thoughts flooded his mind in those next few hours. But what's undeniable is that just after midnight, Kendrick Rollins made a choice. A final, irreversible choice. By 2:47 a.m., the Rollins residence was in flames. The DNA results didn't just fracture Kendrick Rollins' world. They detonated it. He drove home that evening with the lab report still on the passenger seat, its edges curled from his grip, the words etched into his mind like a curse. Inside the house, Cassandra was awake. Waiting. He didn't speak at first. He just stood in the doorway, watching her. When he finally stepped forward, his voice was low. Shaky. Is it true? She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. Instead, she smiled. Then came the words Kendrick would replay in his mind over and over for the next 3 hours. You thought you were the man of the house. You were the joke. She laughed. Not in fear. Not in shame. But in triumph. Cassandra didn't just confirm the truth, she weaponized it. She told him she had choices. Told him his badge couldn't control what happened inside their home. Told him she was done pretending. To Kendrick, it was more than betrayal. It was humiliation, delivered without mercy. By 10:45 p.m., the quiet street of Willow Creek Drive was no longer still. Neighbors heard the shouting first, sharp, vicious. Male and female voices, rising and colliding. Then came the crashing. Glass shattering. A heavy thud, like furniture being overturned. A baby crying. A door slammed so hard it echoed 2 houses down. Some thought about calling the police, but Kendrick was the police. And besides, arguments weren't new to the Rollins house. But this felt different. A neighbor across the street peered through her blinds. She saw Kendrick storm out of the house, barefoot, shirtless, shaking. His face was pale, his chest heaving. His eyes looked wild, like someone trying to hold something in, or trying not to explode. He stood in the yard for nearly a full minute. Then without warning, he walked to his cruiser, opened the trunk, and stared inside. She couldn't see what he was looking at. She only remembered one thing. He closed it gently. Like he was trying not to wake someone. Then he walked back inside. That was the last time anyone saw Kendrick Rollins before the fire began. By midnight, Kendrick Rollins had made his decision. No more questions. No more confrontations. No more pretending. He left the house for the last time as a husband, a father, a son, and a brother. What returned home was something else entirely. Security cameras later confirmed his stop at the 24-hour gas station on the edge of town. It was nearly 1:12 a.m. when he pulled into Pump 6, headlights off. He didn't rush. He moved with eerie calm. Popped the trunk. Retrieved 2 empty red gas cans. Surveillance footage showed him filling both cans, meticulously, without a single glance at the camera. Gloves on. Hoodie pulled low. Then he stepped inside. Bought a box of kitchen matches. A lighter. 2 bottles of charcoal fluid. And a bag of ice. Paid in cash. The clerk would later say he seemed quiet but polite. Nothing unusual. But that's the thing about monsters in disguise. They don't scream. They whisper. By 1:40 a.m., Kendrick Rollins was back on Willow Creek Drive. The street was silent. The world asleep. Inside the house, so was his family. Cassandra. The children. His father. His brother. All asleep. All vulnerable. All unaware of what was coming. He entered through the back. Left the lights off. Removed his shoes. He carried only the gas cans, and his service-issued police baton. His first stop, the guest bedroom. Inside, his father was sleeping on the fold-out couch. A television still flickered low, muted in the background. Kendrick stood in the doorway for nearly a minute. Then stepped forward. One swing. Then another. The baton made no sound against flesh, but the impact echoed in Kendrick's ears. His father never screamed. Never had the chance. He died instantly. Next, his brother. Down the hall. Door cracked open. The younger man lay sprawled on his mattress, face to the wall, phone still charging beside him. Kendrick didn't hesitate this time. One blow to the base of the skull. Another to the temple. Then a third, for silence. 2 bodies. 2 bloodlines. 2 betrayals buried in the same house. He cleaned the baton with a towel and tucked it back into his belt. Not out of guilt, but routine. Then came the next phase. One by one, Kendrick moved through the house. He didn't kill the children. He didn't touch Cassandra. Instead, he barricaded them in. He slid furniture against bedroom doors. Jammed metal rods into window tracks. Wedge-locked the front and back exits. Screwed the deadbolts shut from the inside. Then, he poured gasoline along baseboards. Across carpets. Soaked the couch. Drenched the curtains. He splashed accelerants around cribs, toys, laundry baskets. He moved like a man watering a garden. Controlled. Deliberate. The house filled with fumes. The air grew sharp, thick, flammable. And still, no one stirred. At 2:44 a.m., Kendrick stood at the threshold of the living room, his family trapped in their rooms behind walls of fire-ready fuel. He struck a match. Not a lighter. A match. The old-fashioned kind that snaps to life with friction. He held it for just a moment, watching it dance in his fingers. Then he dropped it. The flame met the gasoline. And the house erupted. The fire consumed everything in seconds. Flames roared down hallways like a beast uncaged. Smoke blackened the ceiling. Glass shattered. Doors warped from the heat, still sealed shut from within. Inside, Cassandra and the children woke to panic. To confusion. To fire. But there was no way out. Outside, Kendrick watched. Just for a moment. His face was blank. Not triumphant. Not weeping. Just, still. Then he turned. And disappeared into the night. By morning, the Rollins home was nothing but rubble and ash. The fire department worked through the night, digging through blackened beams and half-melted furniture. Forensics teams stepped carefully around charred remains, cataloging bodies that no longer looked human. Outside the tape, neighbors watched with mouths covered and eyes wide. Reporters circled like vultures. Rumors spread faster than the smoke had. Where was Kendrick? Had he died in the fire? Had he run? Neither. 5 hours after the blaze, an officer spotted a familiar cruiser parked at the far edge of an abandoned lot near Highway 61, miles from the fire scene. Windows up. Engine off. And inside, sat Kendrick Rollins. Still in the same hoodie. Still in the same gloves. No expression. No movement. He was staring straight ahead, hands resting calmly on the steering wheel. Not asleep. Not alert. Just waiting. When officers approached, they didn't know what to expect. Would he run? Would he shoot? Instead, Kendrick turned his head slowly. Then smiled. Took y'all long enough. He stepped out without a word. No struggle. No fight. Just silence. As they cuffed him, he didn't blink. He didn't flinch. He looked almost relieved. At the station, Kendrick asked for water. Then sat in the interrogation room for 33 minutes, saying nothing. Detectives watched through the one-way glass. The man on the other side of that table didn't look like a killer. Didn't look like a father who'd burned his entire family alive. He looked like someone who'd already accepted the end. When they finally entered, Kendrick leaned back in his chair. You already know what I did, he said flatly. But the truth was, they didn't. Not yet. They had a fire. They had bodies. They had theories. What they didn't have was the full story. So Kendrick gave it to them. All of it. He described the gas station. The gas cans. The matches. The rooms he barricaded. The swing of the baton. The eyes of his brother, just before the second blow. He spoke with clinical precision. No pauses. No hesitation. Like a man reading a report he'd written himself. When asked why, he didn't offer excuses. Not jealousy. Not rage. Not temporary insanity. I saw the DNA, he said. The moment I read it, something inside me went silent. He told them about Cassandra's words. Her laughter. The way she looked at him like he was less than a man. But that wasn't the trigger, he claimed. It was the betrayal of blood. My father. My brother. Even my son. They all knew. And they still came into my house. He paused then, just once. And what he said next froze every soul in that room. The bloodline ends with me. There was no remorse. No guilt. Not even grief. Only finality. He didn't cry. Didn't ask for a lawyer. Didn't request a deal. He signed the confession without reading it. Investigators noted it was the most detailed admission they'd ever received, almost too detailed. Like Kendrick had rehearsed it. Like he needed someone to know. Some killers hide their crimes. Kendrick Rollins documented his. By nightfall, his mugshot was broadcast across the nation. The once respected officer now framed behind cold eyes and a blank stare. Reporters asked, what kind of man does this? But maybe the better question was, what kind of family made him? Kendrick Rollins was formally arraigned just 72 hours after the fire. The courtroom was silent as the charges were read aloud. 8 counts of first-degree murder. 1 count of aggravated arson. Obstruction of justice. Tampering with evidence. And, most disturbingly, abuse of a corpse. Each charge carried a life sentence. But the state wasn't interested in life. They wanted death. The Mississippi Attorney General announced they would seek the maximum penalty under state law, execution by lethal injection. Prosecutors called it one of the most methodical domestic murders in state history. Cold. Calculated. Beyond redemption. But Kendrick? He didn't flinch. At his first appearance, he wore the standard orange jumpsuit. Wrists shackled. Expression vacant. When asked if he understood the charges, he simply nodded. When asked if he had anything to say, he replied, I already said everything that matters. There was no plea deal. No remorse. No defense of mental illness. The justice system moved swiftly. But the emotional wreckage left behind would take far longer to untangle. In Greenville, Mississippi, nothing would ever be the same. This wasn't a city used to headlines. It was a place where people left their doors unlocked and waved at every car that passed. But now, whispers filled every corner. The name Rollins had become both a horror story and a question mark. Some called Kendrick a monster. They saw the bodies, the fire, the method. They pointed to the photos of those children, tiny coffins lined up in a row, and asked, what kind of man could do this to his own? But others weren't so sure. To them, this was the slow-motion collapse of a broken man. They pointed to the DNA test. The betrayal. The incest. Some whispered that any man, pushed far enough, might lose control. He shouldn't have done it, one local said. But God help me. I understand why he snapped. The town split down the middle. Debates turned into arguments. Friendship strained. Churches held vigils, for the children, for Cassandra, even for Kendrick. In living rooms, people wondered aloud. Could this tragedy have been prevented? Did the signs go unseen, or ignored? As Kendrick awaited trial, authorities launched a deeper investigation into the Rollins family. Because the question no one could answer was simple. How? How could 6 children be born under one roof, by 3 different male relatives, and no one noticed? Was it really possible no one knew? Investigators pulled school records, medical files, hospital logs. They interviewed neighbors, teachers, social workers. And soon, a darker picture began to emerge. Some reports suggested that Cassandra may have been living in a cycle of manipulation and abuse for years. There were murmurs she had once filed a restraining order against Kendrick's father, but withdrew it weeks later. A friend from church recalled seeing bruises on Cassandra's wrist once, years ago. She said Cassandra had smiled and brushed it off. She said it was just a misunderstanding. Said the house got loud sometimes. But nothing in the files, nothing documented, ever confirmed abuse. The incest? It had gone undetected. No reports. No red flags. No mandatory disclosures. How could so many children be born into such a twisted dynamic, without anyone raising the alarm? Some believed Cassandra may have been complicit. Others believed she was trapped. A woman groomed, controlled, silenced. Even more disturbing, some questioned if the children themselves knew. Did they ever suspect the truth? If they did, they never spoke it. And now, they never would. In the absence of answers, the town was left only with echoes. Whispers of what might have been missed. What should have been seen. And what can never be undone. 8 people dead. A home turned to ash. And one man's identity shattered by the truth of DNA. But this isn't just a story about murder. It's about lies that span generations, and what happens when a family becomes a trap. The Rollins family is gone. Every branch of their twisted tree, burned to the ground. But the questions remain, could you have handled the truth? Or would you have done the same?